Well, why don't we get started? So I had sent Robert an email just saying, hey, this isn't exactly what I took away from the meeting. There's some things in here that I would change, and I think what I would change is substantial enough that I wouldn't want to just email you and have those changes made without having some sort of voice with the planning commission. So I have some changes that that I can read through, but didn't know if other people did also, or how you all felt about the findings as they were written.
So I received 2 additional follow-up documents. One was from Les, one was from Mike. Both of them had a couple different comments. I'm not 100% sure what the best way to go forward is as far as making sure everybody's interpretations are best encapsulated in the document.
Well, I think it's just really a discussion among who's on the members who are on the phone. You want to read what
Actually, I can bring them up. Hold on. Which one do we want first?
Huh? I'll see it online. Thank you.
Go with this one. Can everybody see that?
well, it's very small. If you could increase the font, it'd be helpful, or just read it.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. So this is from Mike. Here's his thoughts. My thoughts below in the form of additional findings. If you'll add to the record, I defer the decision of the planning commission. Then his text is appellant and applicant presented conflicting interpretation of criteria set forth in chapter 17070 or 1770-020. The planning commission finds that the appellant's interpretation more compelling. Section 1770-020D must be read and consistent with the purpose set forth in, hold on, let me, that. With the purpose set forth in chapter 1770-010 and additional requirements set forth in section 1770-030B to require the issuance of a tree removal permit only when removal is required, quote, to construct a structure or development approved or allowed pursuant to the Cannon Beach Municipal Code, not merely a convenience. Applicant's failure to apply for a tree removal permit until after the building permit was issued and construction commenced deprived the building department and planning commission the opportunity to consider alternatives to removal of the tree, including setback reduction, minimal reductions in square footage and or building techniques, helical pier and foundation bridges to preserve trees root structure despite proximity to the structure. Applicant has presented no information to suggest that the tree canopy cannot be saved using one of these techniques. And then the planning commission notes that the documentation submitted by the applicant in support of the permitting process has been one step behind the applicant's plans from the get-go. The geotech report submitted in support of the application for the tree permit was prepared in anticipation of another house design. A setback reduction was requested and rejected, but for a different house design, and specifically mentions retention of the tree in question. The retaining wall design commissioned by the applicant to support the hillside after the tree was removed had not, as the commission's decision, as of the commission's decision reviewed by, I think he meant to say been reviewed by the building department. The visual reconnaissance requested by the planning commission during its May meeting in connection with a motion for continuance failed to address stability of the slope on which the tree is located, which applicant estimates is in excess of 40% once the tree is removed. Owners of downslope properties have expressed concerns about the slope stability once the tree is removed. And then final sentence is, for these reasons, the planning commission voted to sustain the appeal. And then let me bring up Les's comment. Make sure I'm getting the right one. Okay, and then Les says, These findings are consistent with my recollection of the commission's discussion last Thursday. However, you may recall that I dissented on the motion to uphold the appeal. My concern is with the final sentence. Quote, CBMC 1770-020D does not authorize the city to issue a permit to remove a tree if the applicant can reasonably build an allowed structure for permitted use on another part of the property without undertaking extraordinary measures to build the structure. It seemed to me that the only options left to the applicant, if that is the correct term for the property owner in this case, are extraordinary measures, i.e. redesigning the structure completely. My understanding is that setbacks cannot be reduced and that the remainder of the 10,000 square foot lot is too steep to build on. And then he said that he would be unavailable due to an overlapping appointment.
Okay. Well, I think, maybe when we're together as a full body, the idea of, or the concept of reasonable effort or unreasonable effort is something we ought to talk about. And what constitutes that? Because I think it's probably pretty crucial in cases like this. What is it? What's a reasonable effort on behalf of someone asking to have a tree removed versus unreasonable? And we just don't have that defined. So, Dorian, did you want to add anything?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. How about you, Eric?
No, nothing to add to that.
Okay. Let me just jump into the concern I had. It's under the findings. Let's see. I'll start to this paragraph. It goes, during the May hearing, the commission heard testimony that the respondent was uncertain if it would be necessary to remove the tree until the final location of the foundation and required depth of excavation to reach bedrock had been determined. I think that is very true. They did say that. Jamie Lerma did say that. But a lot of things were said about this process to preserve if possible, remove if necessary. And so I'm concerned about adding certain sections and not adding other sections of testimony or pieces of evidence submitted to the record. So my preference would not to be getting into any specific he or she or this professional said, unless we really touched on most of it, or we felt it was much more pertinent to the decision than other things. And I don't think that particular piece of information is more pertinent to our decision. Yes,
Okay.
Well, I don't need to hear myself talk if that wasn't okay from you, and if Dorian and Eric are in agreement, we'll just leave it there. You guys understand what I'm getting at?
Yes.
Okay. So I liked a lot of what Mike had, and I think we could use that. I wrote something, and again, I'm not stuck to it, but I think from my perspective, this is why I voted how I did. And just touching on something Les talked about, he did not dissent from this vote. He voted against it. So, and there's a fine line. I wish Bill were actually here, but we talked about why he voted against it. He didn't think it was reasonable. I understand that. Be that as it may, the Planning Commission did have more votes to uphold the appeal than we didn't. And so because we have a decision, we have to come up with findings for why we came up with that decision. So the majority here is going to write why we came up with that, why we approved that decision. So one thing, I like the paragraph that reads, based on the exhibits on the record and testimony. I think that was, as Mike said, read, that is the language from Mr. Alterman's letter. And it worked for the purposes of what our vote was at the time. So I think that paragraph could stay. If we were going to add kind of an introductory paragraph before that, I just wrote something up quickly. The Planning Commission heard the respondent indicate it was their intention, in an effort to obtain a tree removal permit, to follow their arborist advice and preserve the tree if possible and remove if necessary. However, the evidence presented to the PC did not support a reasonable effort to protect the tree, both during the site excavation or any reasonable amendments to the building plan or construction methods. Based on testimony from the respondent's arborist and lack of any evidence of communication with their architect to modify the plan, the commission could not find enough support that the applicant had made a reasonable effort to preserve the tree. Further, based on the geotechnical reports in the record, the commission found potential impacts to downslope properties that may result from the tree's removal were not clearly addressed. So that is more focused on our thinking rather than any particular point that one person made or another. And I could even be more specific. That was my thinking for why I voted how I did. I was not moved that they had made a reasonable effort to protect the tree, both in how the tree was handled and how it should be handled. If you're applying for a tree, if you're constructing around a tree you're trying to save, fencing, not knocking off limbs with a tractor, all these sorts of things. To the arborist, his arborist saying they never called me to talk about how we could actually construct around the tree or how we could move soil around the tree. It wasn't an effort that I felt was sincere, might not be the right word, but followed through on. They said we were going to do one thing and I felt like they did another. So that's why I wrote what I did the way I did. Dorian, Eric, any thoughts on that language that I read?
So I definitely think the language that you read off sounds like it actually encompasses a lot of what Mike wrote in his thing indicating about the downslope neighbor complaint that was not addressed. And yeah, I think yours encompasses a lot of why I think most of you guys voted yes on denying the the way they voted. Sustaining the appeal. Yeah.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and I'm like, I mean, we discussed it during the meeting. Like I voted the way I did for those other reasons, but I do see why you guys voted that way, and I think that your verbiage more clearly outlines it than what like to add that like you said as an introduction to that to the findings there. And then removing that the one paragraph or the one sentence or two, what is that, two sentences? One sentence that is just the evidence from one side there with the there, but and then it still includes the remove, preserve if possible, remove if necessary in your verbiage that you read.
Yeah. So that paragraph you have highlighted there, Robert, in my view would be removed.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. If you could send me what you've got.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, I could take that and I could amalgamate that into this. I don't know how much of Mike's information, if yours has enough overlap and everybody's comfortable going with what you wrote, I could put together kind of a second draft, send it out.
I felt like Mike and I did have overlap, and I think Eric caught that as well, that we're touching on some things that were points of the conversation, and certainly why I voted the way I did.
I think what Clay wrote is a really good synopsis of the thought process. I think it
I only
works.
heard the back half of what you said, Dorian, really good, but you liked what I said. Was that
basically? I gave it a thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. Sign language works. So we would remove the paragraph you have highlighted and the next paragraph. So let's take a look at that, make sure we agree. I don't think the condition of the tree matters right now. It does practically, but relative to our findings. And we talk about the geotechnical report in what I wrote, so we can cover that. So those two paragraphs out, the language I sent you in, and then I think we will have better addressed the sentiment of the majority that voted in the way they did.
Okay.
Sound good? Any further discussion? Emily, will you call the roll? May I have a motion?
Without a quorum,
We're not a quorum, are we? No, we're three. So let's just
No, just three.
incorporate it. Let's just incorporate it and send it out to the group again and ask for comment on that. We won't.
Yeah, because and if I remember correctly, there was a motion to sign orders in the previous meeting. So I don't know if we could just do this as kind of a group consensus or procedurally what the best way forward on that would be.
Well, why don't you check in with Bill on that? You know, if these were the orders, I wouldn't sign them. So
Okay.
let's just send out the revised draft to the planning commission, ask for comments. If that looks good, send them back out and then I can sign the order. Sound good to everybody?
Yes.
All right. Great, that was pretty quick. Anything else?
Yeah, we just got to remember, we just got to be timely.
Yeah. I think people, based on the comments we've had so far, will be pretty quick.
We do have a quorum. Aaron is
Well,
here.
He just
Aaron,
logged
you
on
on?
right now.
Oh, okay, Aaron, I didn't know that was you. I'm just seeing your name now. So we have a quorum.
No, I've been on for a while. It just wasn't promoted as a panelist, and I'm in a very tight spot, so won't be able to talk much. But hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hi.
Aaron.
Robert, Steve, do you guys think we need to vote on this or should we just send it out?
I think we could just send it out.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Okay. Aaron, as a panelist, anything you want to add? Sorry, I didn't recognize you on.
No, thanks, Clay. Nothing I'd like to add. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, you bet. Thanks for being here. All right, well, with that in mind, then I think we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for the short, putting this together on short notice.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Clay.
See you, everybody. Bye-bye.